lived in England for a little while.
When was that?
Around COVID.
Okay.
Most of COVID.
Is that like a weird coincidence, or did you like actually actively get out of the country during COVID?
No, it was a weird coincidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you doing out there, if I can ask?
Well, it was kind of like I was dating someone out there and there was like
That's
no
always
work.
the answer.
Yeah. And helps. Definitely. I probably would have moved out there anyway. I just wouldn't have moved to Birmingham. I would have moved maybe somewhere else. But I really, I'm really glad I lived in Birmingham and like not London. And London is kind of like living in LA, and like I'm from LA, so I would have a new experience of it all,
I'm actually from Northern California originally, but I've lived in New York. I lived in the city for about 20 years, and I just moved up to Hudson Valley, so like 2 hours north, because I'm like, you know what, it's time to. I don't like, it was great. It was great being here in my 20s and most of my 30s, but it's time to like see some trees and maybe get out of the city for a minute.
Yeah. Hudson Valley, is that near the Catskills?
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there. Yeah, it's
Oh,
about
yeah.
2 hours north of the city.
My partner is British, but grew up in Woodstock.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's 45 minutes about north of here.
Cool.
That's cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. So what then, I guess conversely, what brought you back home?
My family needed me, and then shows started picking up out here. Shows started picking up, and then my mom died. And I just realized this is where I'm meant to be, here with my sister and my friends and my family.
I'm kind of like at or approaching the age right now where, I live across the country from my family, and they're getting older, and you start to think about time being kind of finite and how maybe it would be nice to at least be in the same time zone as them.
Is your family still in Northern California?
My entire immediate family. I don't know how well you know the Bay Area. I'm only sure I'm sure you've been toured up there plenty of times. I saw you at the Warped Tour a few times, but they're in Fremont, which is in the East Bay.
I know where that is.
Yeah,
where they are, and you are in New York.
Yeah, I've been out here for a while
you've been
now.
In Hudson Valley for a while.
Yeah, and
you've been in Hudson Valley for a while.
I moved here in July, so this is still pretty new thing for me. I was in Queens for about 20 years.
Are you glad you made the change?
Oh yeah,
awesome.
I wonder if you had like a similar experience where like going into a big move, there's a lot of anxiety about it. You worry that you're uprooting your life and making the wrong decision, and then you get there and it's like, oh yeah, no, this is kind of everything that I wanted it to be.
Oh yeah. Well, we go up to upstate New York every year, and it's so great there. You probably had some winters when you were living in Queens. Are the winters in?
Oh yeah.
State?
It's more intense up here, like absolutely for sure. It definitely snows more, but I kind of, again, like you can probably appreciate this being from California, but in spite of the fact that I've been here for that long, like I still find snow to be novel and exciting.
That's so great. Yeah. So every time you get like a white Christmas, or you have that first snowfall in the winter, it's probably like for you every time.
This was my first white Christmas, actually, because it doesn't snow as much down in the city. This is the first time there was snow on the ground during Christmas.
Wasn't it great? Yeah, I was in Woodstock for Christmas this year. It was awesome. It was so cool.
My family's Jewish.
Mine too.
And
Yeah.
Okay. So again, you'll appreciate this too. It's like we didn't really do Christmas, but there's still like something about that day and that time of year.
Oh yeah. Totally. For me, it was just like I was living this like out of body experience being with my partner's family in Woodstock and having Christmas. And, I grew up Jewish and having a white Christmas and in upstate New York. I was just like, wow, this is so different from anything I've ever experienced in my life. And it is the coolest thing. It is so cool. I really enjoyed myself.
When you say out of body, I mean just because it's like, I guess it's one of those moments where it's like almost like being in a movie where it's hard for you to kind of like reconcile that this is your life.
Yeah, it was like, you growing up in LA and in Orange County, like we don't get seasons, And it didn't rain much when I was growing up out here. We were mostly ridden. And so being in a place like the first time I went to upstate New York to visit one of my best friends that lives out there in Woodstock or near Woodstock, I was there in the fall. And like the first time I saw the trees with their leaves that had just, I literally started to cry. I had never seen anything quite so beautiful in my life. I've never seen anything like it. So for me, the whole concept of it snowing in winter on the house that you're actually staying in on Christmas, you're just like, am I in somebody else's movie right now? What's happening? This is so rad.
My mom's family came from the East. Well, actually, both my parents were from the East Coast originally, but they moved out here from New York and or moved out there from New York, and they were living in the Valley. They were in Encino for a long time, and I tried to explain to my grandfather like that I appreciate the seasons having grown up where I did, and like he couldn't understand that, because it's like I'm in LA. LA is, it's like 75 degrees every day. It's nice. Why would you possibly want to live anywhere else?
But now you understand why, right?
Yeah. I do. Part of it, there's sort of like almost like a psychological element to it of like being able to mark time. It's harder to mark the passage of time when every single day feels the same. Does that make any sense?
That makes so much sense. But also, this winter for you guys was really harsh. How did you deal with that? It was like 30 below out there this winter. It got cold.
It's the beauty of being able to work from home. So, I didn't have to go outside very often. The biggest issue, honestly, is that I was in the city for so long. So I didn't drive for about 20 years. So not only am I driving again up here, but I'm driving on country roads and driving in the snow.
Yeah. And are you loving it, or is it free? Were you just like, have you had some moments where you're like, oh, this is a little scary, but you know what? We're doing it.
Yeah, I was white knuckling for the first, probably the first couple months. And then, then it comes back. It's not quite like riding a bike, but it's close enough. It comes back to you. You kind of get in your groove after a while of doing it.
And you have a good snowplower out there. In case you need to go to the supermarket or something, and you have,
I'll tell you,
like 19 inches of snow that night.
I know people bag on HOAs, but the one nice thing about living in a place with an HOA is they do the lawns.
That's great. Is it so? It's not near Beacon, is it? I remember.
It's a little bit north. It's between Beacon and Woodstock, I would say. It's the halfway point between the city and Albany, if that.
Yes, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about. I love Beacon. I spent some time in Beacon. I like it there. That little area is so cute.
Yeah. What I feel like Orange County is one of those places, especially again being from Northern California, that people have a very, I guess specific idea of what life is like there. Obviously, tends a little bit more conservative than a lot of other spots in California, and obviously Disneyland is, one thing that people know. But what would you say after having lived there for so long, like what is something that people just don't get about Orange County from the outside?
Um, it's a very polite way to it was a very I have to commend you. That was a very polite. Basically, they call it living behind the orange curtain, and they call it that for a reason. And, I'm actually originally from Los Angeles. When my family moved to Orange County for my dad's work, he worked in aerospace for 37 years. So we moved down here and, but, I was raised very close to my mom's family. My mom was Moroccan and I was raised very close to her family. They all live in Los Angeles, my cousins and my aunts and uncles and everybody. My sister, after my sister lived overseas, she's 11 years older than me. And, then when she moved back from, from the UK, she moved to Los Angeles. So I spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of summers there, even though I was still going to school out here when I was a kid. And then I moved back to LA in 98. So I lived more of my life in Los Angeles than I ever lived in Orange County. And then when I moved back here from the UK, and my mom passed, I moved into my family home that I grew up in. And I thought, oh man, there's no way I'm staying here. Like, I never wanted to come back to Orange County because my memories of Orange County were not great. Um, Although I was appreciative that I got to go to, um, you know, good public schools. My family never would have been able to afford private school. I also was accepted into a performing arts high school down here. That operated at the time more like a public school. So you were accepted due to audition, but then it didn't cost much for you to go there. So it allowed me to go to performing arts high school as well. And I got to transfer out of the school district in Garden Grove that I was in, which is very small at the time. It was a much smaller school district, 0 minorities. And I got to transfer to a larger school district. And when you have more students, you have more diversity. And when you have more students coming in for the performing arts program from other cities, towns, states, and stuff like that, you get more diversity. And that was where I found my tribe. But prior to that, I felt like a fish out of water here. Like, I never really I didn't really find my footing until I transferred to performing arts high school. And Orange County still has its problems. And I see it much more visibly now that I live here again. But living in this house, I lived in apartments and condominiums for so long, living in Los Angeles, that being in a home and being able to garden and have a yard and a front yard, a backyard, being able to design the interiors and paint things and have a space to make art has been a real gift. That doesn't mean that I'm immune to the stuff that I see down here, though. And there's been some pretty shady shit going on, for lack of a better word, in Orange County. But I also have my own community of people, and I found through the years that there are like-minded people anywhere in the world that you go. You just have to find them. And I found my tribe again, and I didn't think I'd be able to, but I have. I have my friends down here, and we're our own little gang.
You're a professional musician and have been for, it seems, most of your adult life. So you can't look a gift horse in the mouth when it comes to like suddenly having an actual house to live in.
Yeah, it's and this was my parents' dream for my sister and I. This was a legacy that they worked so hard for us, and I, growing up, would always say, "I'm gonna leave Orange County, I'm never coming back." I would never live in Orange County, I would say to my parents, and I realize now how much that hurt them because I can feel how happy they are that I'm here in this house. I can feel it. I know that they're happy that I'm here in this safe home, um, that they spent so long just fighting to be able to afford for us. And so, I live here in a state of gratitude and appreciation, but I'm not blind to what happens when I walk outside that door. It's everywhere. It's
Mm.
on bumper stickers, and it's, listen, we
Yeah.
were we were like, my mom's this like little North African Moroccan lady with dark skin and strong accent, and we're Jewish, and we moved in here to this very waspy sort of neighborhood in Garden Grove, to a school that within the last, 10 years, was in the news for students at my high school that I originally went to, being involved in some being on film as doing some Nazi stuff, singing Nazi songs, the water polo team singing Nazi songs and stuff like that. And uh, there's stuff going on out here too with like the public library that I grew up going to. They're starting to ban books there, and um it really bums me out. Like, I grew up going to that library, and the books that they had in that library opened up my world. Um, so it's an interesting time living down here.
Guess the phrase "orange curtain" has taken on a new meaning over the past decade or so.
That's a really good point. I never thought about it like that, but you are correct. I just never yeah. But I'm also seeing things here that I never thought I would see. It's so much more diverse than it ever was when I was a kid growing up here. There are so many more like-minded people here now than there were when I was a kid. And so, again, like, your tribe is whoever you make your tribe to be, you just have to find them, but they're there.
That's a pretty common experience. I living in Fremont, I had a similar experience, probably a little bit more diverse than it was down there. But especially with artists, I find that that's a very common experience who are from the suburbs. And I'm going to make it sound old, but in those relatively pre-internet days, that you didn't necessarily know that there are other weirdos out there like you.
Right. No, it's absolutely that's so true. I didn't think about it like that, but you're probably so right. I think the internet has definitely opened up people's worlds to so much more information. On one hand, yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot for young people to be exposed to so much information all at once. Then on the other hand, it's like whatever you need, you can probably find if you're just looking for it. And and
Yeah.
hopefully you don't get distracted along the way.
I wonder if this is something that people can appreciate, that younger people can appreciate now, especially because like ska specifically was having its moment, certainly in the late '90s. But again, being coming from where I came from and finding that there was, I finally felt like I had some like my own thing, that edit, like my own. Obviously, like a few years later, it blew up. It became mainstream for a minute, but it was one of the first things where I really felt like, okay, this is, these are my people.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling all too well. Mhm. Yeah. That was why I got into ska band, you know? Like,
Yeah.
that wasn't the original plan at all.
Your parents weren't, like, pushing you to be join a
I had no
ska band?
idea what it was. My sister was stoked though, 'cause she loved ska. She's like, she was all into, like, two-tone in the '80s and stuff when I was a little kid, and she loved, the specials and stuff like that. But, like, my parents are like, "What? We we refinanced the house to pay for voice lessons for you to be an opera singer. What is this? What is happening?" I'm like, "Don't worry, it's gonna be okay." And it was. It ended up being okay.
That's interesting, actually, and I feel like I might have read this about you somewhere at some point, but, you mentioned going to performing arts school, and I was kind of, picturing you maybe being like a theater kid or like a musical theater kid, but being an opera singer, that's a seems like a pretty unique path. What was it that at the time drew you to that world?
Um, well, originally when I wanted to sing when I was 11, the only music teacher my parents could find in the area, or voice teacher for an 11-year-old, was a woman who sang opera. And this woman became like a mother figure to me. And even though we just studied good technique in the beginning, one day she said to me, "Do you want to hear what I do?" And she gave me a little demo tape, and it was of her singing all of these very famous um, arias for dramatic soprano. And at that point, I was hooked. I just loved this woman so much. Her name was Marilyn Cronin. And she changed my life forever because without that training, I don't think I'd still be singing 30 years later. You know, I've had two surgeries on my vocal cords, like um, reconstructive surgery on my neck, and which moved my entire like voice box and esophagus and everything, moved the structure of everything. And I've been through two recoveries and two surgeries, and I don't think I'd still be singing now if it wasn't for her.
Was there a point, going into those procedures or, in the wake of them for a moment where you weren't sure whether this was something that you were going to be able to pick back up?
Um, I was definitely very scared going in. The second surgery, the one for my neck, was really scary because I was confronted with the like a few doctors with lack of knowledge of a better option basically gave me the option of, do you want to sing or do you want to walk? And that was very hard for me to come to terms with. Um, Fortunately, there was a doctor here in Los Angeles that at Cedars that took on my case and was able to operate from the back in my neck. So there was a moment there right after the surgery where I woke up and none of us knew, would I be able to sing and would I be able to walk still? And that was a really scary moment.
I mean, it sounds like in that horrible Sophie's Choice that you were given that you made your decision that that I don't know, maybe I'm misreading this, but that in a way it would be harder to go through the rest of your life not singing than not walking.
Yeah, that was a hard one because also not walking meant not dancing, at least with my legs. And I love to dance with my legs. Before I was a singer, my first love was dance. So I could have lost a lot of the things that I love. Now, that's not to say that everything that I love would have been taken away if I had lost those things. But those are my two main loves, are singing and dancing. And I could have lost both of those.
I know that after the first go round, or I guess maybe the first couple go rounds of Save Ferris, that that you were in other bands, that you had other musical projects. But was there a point where like singing, or at least singing professionally, wasn't really a part of your life?
Mm, well, like I said, before I was 11 years old, I wanted to be a ballerina. But then when I was 11 years old, it was like, yeah, this is going to happen. Like, I'm going to be a singer, whether I'm an opera singer or I'm a musical theater singer, or again, at that, when I was 11, I had no idea I was going to be in bands, but I was like, yeah, this is going to happen.
It's funny that you mentioned being 11. I was actually thinking like, oh, in your adult life, like, was there ever kind of a gap in there, or a point where, you know, something that really fascinates me, that I like to talk to a lot of musicians about, ones who were around in the 90s, ones who had that kind of, I know that sounded awful. No, but ones who, really had a career in the 90s, and were, on a big label, or, or on MTV, and felt like they were really, obviously there was a machine going. It was kind of the waning days of, record companies, or at least the music industry existing in that form. But um, it's got to be a shock to the system, of everything going from like being really huge to maybe starting to kind of slow down a bit on the other side.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's when there was this like mutiny of players within the band in like 2001 or 2001, that decided that they just weren't going to do Save Ferris anymore, and they left. They just had no faith in the band anymore, I think. I mean, maybe like everybody has their own story to tell, but um, they thought that was the end of Save Ferris. And I thought the opposite. I thought it was the beginning, because now we were out of our major label deal. We could go back to doing things the way we did things in the beginning, and I felt that was when we were the most successful we'd ever been. And but they didn't see it that way. And I wasn't willing to give up on the fans. So I kept going until I just couldn't go anymore, and my body, well, my mind sort of gave up. And yeah, like I went into various other careers for about 10 years. I went into entertainment business management. I worked for a firm in Beverly Hills, and it was a very comfortable job, and I loved it there. But I knew that if I stayed, that I'd never sing again, because it was just so it was so comfortable. And I thought, yeah, I gotta give this music thing another try. If something in me just felt unfulfilled still. And I spent the next few years wondering, like singing on other people's records and stuff, and doing that a lot. And then wondering, well, am I ever going to be on stage again? I just didn't know.
Even so, though, there's a difference between, I'm not going to sing again, or I'm not going to play music again professionally, and I'm not going to be, that Save Ferris isn't going to be a thing again. And it seems like maybe it took a while for you to get back to that place where it was clear that, I guess, this is what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah, and also I just wasn't like physically or emotionally. I was so damaged, I think, not only from the industry, but from the people that I had been around in the 90s. Like, I wasn't around people who, for the most part, made me feel um like I could do anything, that I wanted to do, that I was capable. Um, I wasn't around a lot of people who believed in me. And after a while, I started believing them. And so when I finally pulled myself off the road was when I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I need some time to figure out who I am. I need to heal. Like I said, physically and psychologically, I need to heal. And it took me a while. And I was blocked for a number of years. Um, like musically, creatively, I was blocked for a number of years. It was really hard to pull out of that. But I did. Took some time, but I did. Fortunately. Oh, no, I said fortunately.
So who are you? I mean, what did you figure out about yourself that you didn't really understand at the time?
That's a good question. Well, let's see. Who am I? um, you know, I am what I tell our fans they can be if they want to be. I'm strong enough and I'm pretty enough and I'm smart enough and I'm strong enough to be able to do whatever I set out my mind to do. And I I would tell our fans that because I knew that was the right thing to do because I never wanted anybody like in my 20s I never wanted anybody to feel about themselves like I felt about myself. So I would say that um just be yourself, you know? But but I didn't believe it for myself, but I do now. And I don't know if that's like just part that comes with age or the fact that like all the things that I've had to overcome, if it came from that or what, but I see these like young artists now. They just have they're so grounded and they have such a incredible support system around them and I am just amazed. It's amazing. It's so beautiful and it's such a much better time to be a woman and be in this industry, that's for sure, because it was not easy in the 90s. And I'm sure it was much harder for women in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and blah, 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 blah. But the 90s sucked for women.
I was going to ask, and I was trying to find a like a non-crass way of saying it, but like how much of the way you were treated and how much of that subsequent negative image do you think came from the fact that of being a girl singer in a ska band?
I don't even know if it had anything to do with being in a ska band. I think it had
Well, sure. Okay. Let's just do the girl
well,
singer part then. Being a female singer
yeah,
in a
just
band.
being in the industry, I think. I, like, see
Yeah.
like, I have PTSD when I watch these, like, music documentaries on
Mm.
the '90s and, like, Woodstock 99 is it? Or 98 Woodstock, like,
The
oh
riot one, the
my
riot
god,
year.
I can't watch it. It's, like, full PTSD because that's exactly what it was like, like guys in bands on stage telling girls, "Show us your tits," and stuff like that, and girls would do it because they just, like, really wanted to be accepted by everybody, and they wanted to be seen, and they just wanted to feel loved and appreciated, and we were told that that was all we were good for, really. Um, and I didn't come from the most stable home either. So I was like estranged from my parents for a number of years. I had kind of a rough childhood. So I didn't have like a great foundation to begin with, you know? So I had like all these bricks stacked against me, you know.
It had to have been an incredibly difficult line to walk of, being comfortable in your own skin and having, I guess, having sex appeal, but having it on your own terms in a way that doesn't make you completely objectified.
Yeah, and I didn't know how to do that. I was just in an environment where I was surrounded by people, like I said, who didn't support me. Support they didn't even like me, you know? And, like, on one hand, like, how could I blame them? I didn't even like myself, you know? Like, then on the other hand, I think that it was also the time where women who tried to be outspoken or have ideas of their own were frowned upon. And again, Orange County, like, there's something to be said about the atmosphere in Orange County at the time as well. It was particularly um, difficult because then when I tried to assert myself and I had a greater purpose um, for our fans later on, the amount of abuse that I had to endure was just staggering. And I'm talking like literally guys coming out of the woodwork going, "You're fat, you're disgusting," and death threats and stuff like that. Yeah.
You got that internet comment section in real life before internet comment sections were really a thing.
Oh no, I got honey, that was 2013.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not even talking about, abuse you're suffering or not liking yourself in that original go round in the 90s. Like, this is a much more recent
It was a
occurrence.
much more recent occurrence. It was like me trying to bring the band back and then, being subjected to the same abuse that I was subjected to in the 90s by the same kids, but they're now adults and should know better because they have kids of their own, you know?
Mm.
And, I mean, I found that unforgivable, but I've come to forgive everybody for it. And, yeah, I mean, I'm totally digging my life now. Like, I like who I am. I'm so happy that those voices in my head are gone, those negative ones. Those people, I mean, I really came to a place of forgiveness for all of them, for all of them. And I don't focus on that so much anymore. I just focus on the stuff that I'm grateful for.
We talked about that a little bit about that change that you were actively making in yourself again after, I guess, after the 90s, after the peak of the band. But what is that, the last 10, 12 years, like what is it that's happened to you in that period that has made you not only, like, again, more comfortable in your own skin, but willing to, as you said, forgive awful, awful people?
Well, that suffering in 2013 that I thought I'd never bounce back from was actually a gift. Like the worst thing that I could have
Mm.
ever imagined happening happened. And I confronted those like the bullies and the awful, awful people. I literally confronted them and I won. And I won my own battles. I beat um, my own demons but yeah, that big struggle, overcoming that was the greatest gift I was ever given. It was like, thank you for handing me this like bowl of steaming shit, a platter. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm grateful now. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
I mean, it sounds like winning maybe is even just as simple as like going out there and continuing to do this thing, regardless of what, somebody who you might never meet thinks about it.
Yeah, and it was a gift in the sense that like it forced me to focus on my priorities, and my priorities were our fans and the people who love music and who love seeing a band live and who love this band, who have those memories of being a kid that I still remember of when I was a kid going to ska shows and who never forgot that, who just want that again, you know? No, I live for that child in me and that child in all of the rest of us. I live for that. I really do.
Your name has been added to, some of the older songs as a songwriter, but it seems it's even more so the case now that you have taken a much more proactive approach to actually writing the music.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't really allowed to. That was just too much for some people. But like I said, I was blocked for years, and overcoming the blockage for the sake of like this band and for the sake of the fans was like, okay, okay, this is going to happen. It's going to hurt, but I'm going to get to the other side of this. And I still work at it. It's still hard because those voices still come up that tell me you can't do this. Who do you think you are? You know, but
Yeah.
but I just beat him down with a stick and bury him in the backyard with the dogs.
So, I mean, obviously, you it's not that you don't play the older songs, and and you understand why people who are coming out to the show get excited about it. We all like get excited when we hear a band playing, something that we like and are familiar with. But why was it really important that a piece of this was really generating new material?
Because I enjoy working with other people creatively. It inspires me. It it opens up my world. It's like seeing, when you see a rainbow after the rain, you know, and there's something inside of you that goes, wow, I'm in awe of this moment right now because how could something so incredible exist in my world? And every time I have the opportunity to work with another creative, um, it's like seeing that rainbow for the first time again. I am just in awe of the talent that I get to be in the presence of. And so, yeah, I write songs by myself too, but for me, the way I stay inspired is by being around other creative people, and we also sit and we tell stories with each other, and uh yeah, it's this sort of intimacy that you share with someone that's just so beautiful. It's on a whole nother level. So I enjoy writing songs. And I also think that like there's new fans too. I mean, that's the thing that's been the hardest for me to comprehend. It's like, who are you? I have to play a show. I'm like, who are you? Who are these children standing in front of me? And where did you
You people who weren't born the last time we put
right?
them about.
Like they don't even like okay, there's there's all different kinds of fans that come to Save Ferris shows now. There's there's the, original fans that I've grown up with, and now they bring their kids to the shows, and some of them talking like literal babies in like, big headphones, big sound counseling headphones, literal toddlers. Like, wow, I love you. This is great. Probably not a good night to play Too Drunk to Fuck by the Dead Kennedys, but like, and then there's like there's the other fans who think that Save Ferris wrote Come On Eileen. And they're also adorable and awesome. But then there's the kids who don't even know that we covered Come On Eileen. Like they're fans of like the new record,
That's wild.
which is so wild because like I feel like, if we don't play Come On Eileen tonight, there will be a riot. Some kids that are there that are just like, oh, this is a fun song. Great. I love that you're closing with it, but like, what about Lights Out in the Reptile House? Why don't you close with that? Whatever. Yeah. So there's so many, the fans are so varied now. It's really cool. And it's and the thing that I, like, prayed that I would be able to, like, bestow upon our fans, the gift that I couldn't give to myself, which was come as you are, be yourself, love yourself exactly as you are, because and if you don't love yourself in that way, I'm gonna love you till you can love yourself in that way. Like, those like, that is what's happening now. People are coming to the shows exactly as they are, and they're getting the feel they just come, and it's this point in time, it's this, like, hour and a half or 2 hours where they can just, like, be themselves. I'm a 55-year-old woman in a mosh pit. I'm a 15-year-old in a mosh pit with that 55-year-old lady, and we are stoked to be here right now, beating the shit out of each other, you know? Amazing.
Sorry, this is a bit of a side, but talking about "Come On Eileen" being a cover, something that I've always been curious about. You probably have been asked this a lot, but something I've always wanted to ask you is, did you ever get any feedback from Dexys? Like, did they ever acknowledge that your version existed?
Not to me. Kevin has never acknowledged it to me, and coincidentally, I told you I was living in Birmingham, England, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when I was living there, a bunch of people from Birmingham were like, "And Dexys is from Birmingham, right?" And I was like, "What? That's crazy." That being said, no, they've never, like, he's never. I wish I knew how to get in touch with them, because that would be.
He seems like a bristly guy, and almost I don't
Yeah.
know. He might be a recluse at this
Yeah,
point.
I agreed. I've read quite a few articles, and yes, I know that he too has had some things that he's struggled through as well. And but I mean, if anything, I'd love to just say thank you for writing the song that made me so happy when I was a child, that when I was old enough to make the choice, I chose to cover that song in my band. You know.
Yeah, it can't be overstated how much, having gone through these things. I was thinking about this before as we were talking about Orange County, but even more broadly, like living in a homogenous society. And this is really corny, but true, that the importance of diversity around you, and how that opens your worldview, and the way that travel opens your worldview. But the the other side of the same coin is that having those struggles really gives you empathy and compassion when in terms of like judging other people, because you've been through the shit, and you understand, like, oh, that person wasn't maybe super kind to me today, like they're probably going through it now too.
That's such a good point. Yeah. I think I always had this sort of this level of um empathy for people. Like I said, I grew up in kind of a rough household. Um and so I always had just an immense amount of empathy for people who were struggling. Um and so yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe you're right.
You were ostensibly in this punk rock band, and you were, in this world of I guess outcasts, maybe, and to a certain extent people on the margins. And I just think about how much different the world would be, and how much different politics in 2025 would be, if more people just had like one trans person in their
Oh my
life.
god. You are so right about that. Yeah. I have to agree. I have too many friends that are moving out of the country because they're scared. And I never imagined that I don't know. This it's just not the country that I remember growing up in, but in the sense that, like, uh I mean, let me rephrase that. Um, it's like
It's always been a struggle for certain groups of people, like, that you can't
it's
deny.
hard to be diplomatic. I'm trying to be diplomatic. That's the thing is
Yeah.
I just wanna rage, I wanna be angry, and I wanna be mad at everybody, and I wanna be afraid, but I'm not gonna allow the fear to overtake me, and I'm gonna stay here, and I'm gonna fight for my friends who can't fight for themselves. That's what's gonna happen.
You were talking a little bit before about, um, your inability because of the environment to be outspoken or to voice your opinion about things. And I'm wondering at this point, now that you've become more of a songwriter, and I don't know if these two things are related at all, but I noticed on your site that it mentioned that you had a set of songs that you scrapped that were written prior to the pandemic. Whether to what extent those big cultural shifts that were happening um, influenced the newer set of songs, and whether you feel kind of a sense of responsibility, but also an ability to address some of these things directly through your songwriting.
Um, I've always had something to say in my songwriting, even in the '90s, veiled as it may be. The messages are there. The message is there. But I want people who listen to our music to be able to take these songs and use them in their own lives toward healing whatever they need to heal in that moment. So that's why I don't talk too much about like the exact meaning of the songs because I know what it was like for me. And it's still like for me when I hear a song that I like, I think they wrote that song for me. If they were to tell me exactly what that song was about and it had nothing to do with what I thought it had to do with, and how it um related to my life, I'd be like, dang, and then I'd never hear that song the same way again. So there's that. The other thing is I want everybody, regardless of their political affiliation, what they believe, or their religious um, denomination, to feel welcome at a Save Ferris show. Why? Because art is the one thing that unites us. And you will never see the world the same way again once you've allowed yourself to experience art in that way. You'll never see the world the same way. I never would have been able to travel if it wasn't for me being in a band. I did not come from a place where we had that kind of financial freedom. But music and art and dance teleported me. That was how I traveled. And if it wasn't for like Prince and David Bowie and Devo and um, all of these bands that I grew up with and these artists that I grew up with taking these incredible chances artistically um, and teleporting me, I don't think I'd be the person who possesses the empathy that I do now, if that makes any sense.